alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. I know that it's almost 2:30 and many of you are maybe tired, but hopefully I can keep you all awake and make it a very interesting subject. Of course, today I'm here as the head of the Open Data Committee, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. And we'll talk about what Dubai is doing about the Dubai data. Okay, so I'll take you through this simple presentation. We have a table of content, Dubai Open Data Committee, who we are, what we do, and so on, and so on. So I'll take you through the presentation real quick. First of all, let's talk about the Dubai Open Data Committee. In November of last year, 2014, the Crown Prince of Dubai has issued a decree forming a committee called Dubai Open Data Committee. This committee is headed by me and my colleague here just right now, Mr. Mohammed Zafin is also one of the members of the committee. The mandate for this committee was to deliver, the committee time is 2 years, but the mandate was to deliver 3 things within 6 months. So these 3 things were, 1 was the open data strategy for Dubai, 2, the draft law for open data in Dubai, okay, and 3 was the roadmap for open data. So as the committee was formed, we had these 3 mandates to deliver within 6 months of the committee's time. So that was by 18th of May 2015. So almost a few weeks back, the deadline was there. Now I'm very happy to share with you all that the committee and the team members, including some of you here who have worked with us, like my friend Abdullah from Ittisalat, okay, we've involved few key also non-government entities to work with us in this committee. So we have delivered officially to the government on the 14th of May, we have delivered the open data strategy or Dubai data strategy for government of Dubai, okay? We have delivered the Dubai data draft law, and we have delivered the roadmap. So the 3 mandates that were required, we have delivered. Plus, we have also delivered the classification framework, data classification framework. We've delivered the primary registry, okay? And we also have provided the 5 policies or regulations as well, along with that. So we have delivered that, and that was a work of six months where almost more than 40 people have worked on this. 40 people from various entities, including some private entities, the telcos, okay? Both Du and Ittisalat have worked with us on this as well. So that is the history, and now I'll take you through why we are doing this. Of course, everyone knows that His Highness Sheikh Mohammed has announced that he wants Dubai back in October of 2013. His Highness has announced that he wants Dubai to be the smartest city. Then in February of 2014, he has announced the initiation of this project. Okay, and the main objective of making Dubai smart was to provide a better life and make people happier in Dubai, both people who are living in Dubai and people who are visiting Dubai. So with that vision of His Highness and mandate from His Highness to make Dubai not just a smart city, but the smartest city by end of 2017. So that is a challenge, okay? And as part of also the Executive Committee for a Smart Dubai, we have worked and we've looked into this, and we found out that data is a major, okay, let's say, important thing to make that happen. So without having the data, we cannot achieve the smartest data, smartest city in the world. So we have worked on that. And that's how this committee was formed, to look at open data for Dubai. Now, mainly, the open data had, the objective of it was to create new businesses and jobs opportunities. As part of Dubai's strategy 2021, okay, there is a whole segment there for innovation, for new talents, for creating new life standards, and so on. Support the development of communication between government and private sectors and individuals, okay? Also improve the efficiency of data sources, come up with new innovation. As many of you know that the president of UAE has announced year 2015 as the year of innovation, okay? Contribute to the economic growth of the Emirate of Dubai, and raise the standard of living, making people more happy, and also at the end, by creating new services. So the committee, when it was formed, it was called Dubai Open Data Committee. But actually, when we started working and we started doing some benchmarks with countries around the world and cities around the world, we've decided that it's not something just related to the government. Other cities, other countries, they are just putting open data for the government. What we wanted to do in Dubai is to bring everyone in Dubai as part of this. So it's not only government. It's not only government. So we are including also the private sector. So the private sectors and the government and the individuals, they all have to work towards this open data thing. All right? Then the other differentiator that we have done, so this is the first differentiator. We wanted to open data, okay, not just for the government, but for the whole city. So we have then changed the name from open data to Dubai data. It's Dubai data that we want. It's Dubai data that we want to provide, to make it available, to achieve these goals, okay? So first of all, the differentiator between the rest of the cities, we are not talking only government, we're talking government, private, individuals, everyone within the city. And then the second differentiator, that many governments and cities, they have just focused on open data. Either you open this data to everyone, or this data is not available. But what we wanted to do for the good of the city, for the good of the emirate, and to achieve the goal of happiness of the people, and to achieve also the goal to become the smartest city in the world, okay? We have looked at not just what data can be open and freely be available to everyone, but also the data that can be shared in the terms that it could be shared between government and private entities, it could be shared between government and government, okay, and so on. So what is this shared data, okay? We'll talk about them as we move on. So when we started also, we looked at what is the data that we are having in Dubai. So we have government data. This is the data that government has. We have private sector data. This is the data that is within the private sector. Okay, and the individual data, this is the people's data themselves, their social network, and so on. And then we have the open data. So we have 4 different sources of data, and that is the data that can be freely opened. Now, if you look at what I said earlier, we would like to have the open data is one aspect. Then we have the shared data, and the open data and the shared data, they combine into what we call Dubai data. So the difference between them, that open data will be available to everyone. Shared data will be decided that it can be shared between different people only, or different entities only, being it government to government, or private to government, or government to private, okay? Now, Let me give you an example of, everyone knows open data. Let me give you an example of open data. Open data is made, for example, information about the weather forecast is open to everyone. There is nothing wrong with it, right? Information about the public transport schedule, when the buses will arrive, when the metro will arrive, at what time, what are the bus routes, and so on. This can be open. There's nothing wrong with it. This is not something confidential or has privacy in it, okay? And then you have the shared data. So that is examples of open data. Shared data, it could be a very sensitive data. For example, if you want to control an outbreak, okay, an outbreak of some sort of a virus, okay, that affects people's health. So in that, here is a little bit privacy comes into picture. But it's very important for the government or for the city of Dubai to know where these outbreaks are happening, how many people have this virus, and so on, so it can control it. So in that term, there should be a shared data between the Department of Health and the various different private hospitals and private medical firms, right? So that they can control. So here, you cannot open that information to public, but it should be shared between this private sector, which is the medical entities, private medical entities, and the government medical entities, whether it's Dubai Health Authority or even the Ministry of Health. So in order to control that and make sure that it doesn't become a major issue, we need to act fast. So in this term, this is an example of a shared data that we're talking about. Now, of course, again, I insist that open data is something that brings together and provides the tools for people to become innovative. Let me share with you a story that I went through. About a year and a half back, there was a huge article in the newspaper, okay, that 2 university students, they came up with an app for Dubai Metro. And many newspapers talked about them, about how their app was innovative, how they came and provided this app, okay, and so on. So we, as now I'm wearing the RTA hat, so as an RTA, we've called them in to thank them. So we've brought them in, give them a gift, give them a certification, okay, for the work they have done. This was something good. And then these students asked me a question and asked me, they said, look, our app can even be further improved if you can give us access to the metro schedule. Okay, live access to the metro schedule. So that means if the metro timing is changing or there is a delay in the metro, they need to get that data. Because now their app is what? Their app is based on the static information from the brochure they took from one of the metro stations, okay? And they are relying on that. But that is not actual because, you know, the delays happen sometimes. Sometimes the programs change. They want to have access to that. At that time, I didn't have an answer for them. I couldn't tell them, oh, okay, here is the data, here is the connection, here is the APIs, take it. So with the Open Data Law or Dubai Data Law, we can do that. We can provide these to students, to private sectors, to individuals even, to come up with ideas, to come up with new innovative ways of creating new solutions, new apps, new services. It doesn't have to be an app. It could be a service. Based on this data, that data, you can put them together and you can provide a service to people in the city at a fee. If you are a private sector, if you are an individual, you can give it for free to people. and create an app and give this app freely to people. If you are a government, you can take information from private sector, other government entities, and put them as part of your service delivery. So it will make it easier for people to have the services from you, and so on. So it's a year, since 2015 is a year of innovation. I think open data and shared data, or Dubai data, fits very well in enabling this, and enabling the innovation part. Finally, before we finish, already some government entities have started inviting students or private sector or individuals to come in and create new services. And they are willing to provide their apps. I was talking to a government entity that I will not mention their name today. Their CEO called me and he said, Abdullah, I want to start. I want to open my data. I said, oh, thanks. All right. So people are becoming more aware and seeing the importance of what open data can do, importance of what sharing can do in terms of helping the city. So there is a lot to be done. Hopefully within the next few weeks or months, the draft law will get approved, and then everyone will have to abide by it and start working towards providing the data. So how many of you heard about Open Data 1.0? Basically, Open Data 1.0 says, open data is good. Let's do it. Okay? Please, let us work on it. It says so many other things, but I'm just summarizing it. Open Data 2.0, it says, open data is a necessity. It's not something, a luxury you can have. It's a must. It's something you have to provide. Okay, for the good of the city, for the good of the people, okay? Open data is a necessity. It's not any longer something that, would you like to open or not? I'm just coming back from Japan, where we went and saw certain things, and as part of the visit, I managed to also see their open data team and see what they have done. They have started with Open Data 1.0, where they went, the Prime Minister of Japan told everyone, the federal Japanese government entities, open your data. So some did, some didn't, some did little bit, some did that much, some did that. And they started in 2010. And when the tsunami happened in 2011, they found out we need to have more open data, because the open data that was there helped them a lot. Helped them a lot in controlling and managing this disaster. So they believed in it. Later on, they came and said, now it's not anymore a luxury or just a request by the Prime Minister, open your data. Now we want everyone to open their data, all the government entities. Still, they are not talking about private, but they said all the government, federal and local government, we want them to open. And they came now, they have introduced a strategy. Just now, they introduced a strategy. And just now, they are thinking, when we told them that we are coming up with a law, they are thinking also to come up with a law to mandate this open data and the sharing of the data. So with that, I conclude my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions, if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Well, now we can open the floor to questions. So do we have any questions about the rising importance of the open data, as we've heard it from Mr. Abdullah? We do. We have quite a few, so I don't have to start with mine. That's great. I'll start down the front and I'll come over the back for you.
Thank you very much for the nice presentation. For open data, what people are aware about is this security issue. Yeah. Sometimes they said you might, there is some kind of privacy that people records or things like that. So how you manage these things, or how do you think that organizations should manage and think about that things? That's my question.
Okay. Very important question. And as part of the team that we have people also from the information security as well. So they were very concerned. They had the same questions that you had, okay, and so on. But we have managed that, as I showed you earlier, we have open data and we have shared data. Why we have open and then we have shared? Open is for things that, and then I said also that we have a classification process for the data, okay? So the classification process does the following. First of all, it says, is data classified or not? What makes this data classified? Three things. One is privacy. One is privacy. Two is confidentiality, okay? And three is security. So maybe something that has to do with security of the, and providing, say, a secure environment for the city. So those are the three things. So the first three questions will be, is this data has a privacy concern? Has it have a privacy? Second, it has confidentiality. And third is security. If this data does not tackle these three, then this data should be opened. So this data can be opened. If it has any of these three, then it will be called a classified data. Or in real term, it's called restricted data, right? And we didn't want to call it restricted data because we don't want to give people the sense of, restricted. Okay, and you know a term, data hackers? You know the data hackers? This is my data, I'm not going to give you. Okay, I hug my baby, this is my data. So we don't want to encourage data hackers to say, restricted data, okay? So we call that shared data. So even the data that is restricted can still be shared under certain processes, certain guarantees, certain things. Like the example I gave you about the health issue. If there is an outbreak of a virus, okay, we need to have that data as a city, as a whole, so we will know how to control it, okay, how to be proactive about it, okay? So this is confidential data. This is maybe privacy issues. But in this term, it can be shared between certain community only, which is the medical community, whether it's private, government, and so on. So the ultimate government needs to have that data to be able to manage it, to work proactively in making sure it doesn't grow, the outbreak doesn't grow.
It's not surprising that there are questions about the effective management of shared data. I think we have one more question at the back there, and someone over here, and someone here, and someone here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Abdullah, for the informative presentation. I have a question about the issue of equality, that when we have this open data from different sources and we have to make it open for rational decision-making process, the quality comes as an important issue. And why I'm saying that, because sometimes we move very fast to open data, and then there is a lag time between the quality standards and the product or the services that we provide. So did you have, through the policies, you mentioned that you have 3, 4, 5 policies developed. Did you have also something regarding quality framework or policies regarding the quality of open data? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Just to share with you, we've done a benchmark, and there is many cities or many countries that they have practiced open data or shared data. They faced this issue, the issue of how good the quality of your data is, or how good the quality of the data that is provided is, okay? Now, if we sit and say, let all the data be perfect, then we will open it up. We will never going to open the data or share the data. Many cities or countries around the world, when they started opening the data, they solved this issue actually. Because when the originator of the data or the data owner, let's say, knew that he has to provide this data in the open, he had to make sure, it's his reputation, he had to make sure that he provides the best data, the highest quality of the data, right? Okay? But if you tell him, open only when you are ready, he will never open it. So here the data huggers, our friends from the data huggers, okay, will stick and will say, this is our data, and we'll not give it to you. Because it's still not clean. Wait, another 6 months, give us another 1 year, give us another, still, let me see. So the data huggers will be happy to see that, okay? But the best practice that we've seen, every other country, they went and opened their data, okay, or shared their data in a way or another. And they got feedback on their data, and that's how they cleaned up the data. That's how they fixed the data issues that they had. So, answer to your question, we are not waiting for data to be of the highest quality. We're asking people, make sure your data is the quality, because if it's not quality, then your reputation is at stake, okay? But you have to open your data. So therefore, there is no question. If you cannot tell us that this data is classified, you don't have enough good reason to tell us this data, why this data is considered to be classified, then you have to open it for everyone. If you say this data is classified, then you should be ready to open it with the concerning other entities that require this data to improve services or to the national interest of the Emirate of Dubai.
And we had a question over this side, but I've lost your hand, sir. There you are.
Thank you very much. I have a question about the law itself. My understanding is that this law is only applicable for the Emirate of Dubai, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, are there any plans to make it on the federal level?
Very good question. Federal government. How many of you here know that UAE government has an open data and you can go and access it today? How many in the audience here know that? 1, 2, and they hesitated, I think. They took them like few seconds to raise their hands.
It's been kept a secret,
you're too
hasn't
late.
it?
Okay, so the federal government already has open data policy on its portal, okay, and they are providing some data openly. The federal government also is currently working on a law. So the draft law also for the federal government is under process, okay? And what we have done, we have aligned ourselves with that. So we have worked very closely with the team that is doing the open data. We've actually invited them to come and see what we are doing, and we shared also with them, and they shared also with us what they are doing. The federal open data law will be very high level. Here in Dubai, we're talking a little bit more detailed, but it will be aligned. So we have worked together with the federal government to make sure that when our law comes out, it's somewhat aligned to what they will come out. Now, we don't know which one will come out first, but both are aligned, okay?
Another question over at the back there, and I'll come to you at the front in a moment, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. Over here.
Over here, okay.
One of my questions is actually related to the open data itself. So open data is obviously going to be creating competition. And as you can see in the US, for instance, once you give access to data to the entire public, you're going to have several entities, be it a student or a private company, that are going to be creating applications or website using that specific data. And sometimes you'll find someone like, let's say RTA has an application, and another entity, another person will come and create something similar to RTA, but might be better or might be worse. And eventually you have 10, 20, 30 applications that will be providing the same thing. So in London, for instance, there's 7 applications to use the tube.
Okay.
How would you handle this as a company, as RTA, against the competition? Would you be losing assets? How do you handle something like that?
The world is changing. Even today, if you go on the App Store or you go on the Google Play Store, just write parking in Dubai or parking Dubai. How many parking apps you will end up getting? Anyone tried? Some of you tried, maybe, okay? There is a lot. There is maybe more than 3 or 4 or 5 even. I've lost count since the last checking, okay? But these apps people are developing. And I even had one of my friends coming to me and said, Abdullah, I like this parking app better than your parking app, RTS parking app. It's much easier for me to use, okay? So we cannot stop people from developing apps and providing services. So the best way to handle that, or to answer your question, open data will solve a lot of that. Because today, these people are developing apps, and God knows how secure they are, how they are accessing, some of them parking app, they are taking money from people, right? So how the people are giving this money to them and so on, and based on what, they have the latest information or not, okay? But when we open the data to these sort of communities, okay, so these sort of service providers or app developers, we will then make sure that they are using the right data and the people are getting the right services, okay? I'll give you an example of Transport for London, TfL, okay? TfL, as part of the UK government open data, they decided, let's open our data as well. How many apps after they opened their data did they get? How many apps were developed? Can someone give me a number? Anyone? Okay. Let me tell you. Are you all afraid of giving a number? Okay. Be open. Open data. Give us a number. Okay, anyway. So 200 apps just for Transport for London. 200 apps. Now, your question is, all these 200 apps were successful and stayed in the market? No, maybe at the end, maybe 5 of them or 10 of them people are using, okay? But what burden it took off, if you're asking me about competition, I don't want to compete. I want to provide a good service for people. I want to make sure the people of Dubai are happy, okay? I want to make sure that when they go to the metro station, they get you have the information if there is a delay or what time the trains will arrive and what time the trains will stop at night. What is the last service, okay? So I don't care who develops the app as long as people feel this developer is doing the right job and he has a best way of providing that. Then let him provide. Why not? Okay? It's a choice of people. Let the people decide what they want.
And another question on the front here.
Thank you. I can build on the previous question from my friend in the back. How you ensure and how you manage ownership of the data? It's become an open data. So I was the previous owner. Who's the next owner? How you manage ownership? As you are saying, somebody may take the parking data and build an application and sell it for money. Yes. So he's using an open data provided by whatever government, and he's getting money back, building on it. So how you manage and ensure ownership before and after opening the data?
Okay.
Thank you.
Of course, the registry, the primary registry and the registries will identify who is the owner of this data. And the owner of the data, first of all data belongs to the government. The government data belongs to the government, not the private data. The government data belongs to the government at the end. But there are different government entities that are responsible for creating this data. Like if you take RTA, they are responsible for creating the data about the scheduling of the different transportation modes. If you take Dubai municipality, they are responsible for providing the data about the parks in Dubai, for example, right? So they are the data owners in terms of generating this data. But all these data belongs to the government at the end, okay? So we will have something called licensing. So even when we say this data is open, the person has to agree to the licensing term. There is no fees on that, but he has to agree. He has to say, yes, I will make sure that I will use this data without violating any of the country's laws. Okay, so that is something very simple. He puts it there. Now, we cannot stop if that person takes this data from RTA, the bus arrival data, for example, and he takes the parks information from municipality, okay, and he takes something from Department of Tourism, and he creates an app that makes it easy for people to arrive at the parks or use the facilities in the park or go to the parks, okay? You got my, and then he adds to it, for example, jogging information and all that. So for people who want to go to the parks, to encourage them to actually do what you call the exercises. So we'll have a healthier community, right? And then he adds to it. He takes the data and information from the civil defense and the numbers, the emergency, the processes, so in case someone sees something, he can report as well, okay? So he puts that into a nice app, and he decides to sell that app. Let him sell it. What stops you for, what you will lose if he sells that? He's providing a new app dedicated to a certain type of people who will love this app. Maybe it's easy, very nice for them to use. They will use it. And if he wants to charge it, let him charge.
Mr. Abdullah, loads and loads of questions from the audience. We have time just for a couple more. David, at the back, you have one person, I think, and then we have one at the front here, and then we have to probably close after that. Let's see.
Oh, hi. Good afternoon, sir. I'm over here.
No, okay. Oh, okay.
Hi. Fantastic presentation. Thank you very much. I'm just wondering, is there going to be a process where an individual or a company can apply to see what data of theirs is
I cannot hear you. Can you read
Sorry,
it?
I was saying, is there going to be a process where an individual or a company can apply to see what data of theirs is being held and can then furthermore apply to edit or withdraw it?
Okay, if I understood your question perfectly, if I understood, please let me know if I understood it well. You're saying, what is the process of people getting the data?
No, a process to say, dear open data governor or whoever, I want to know what data about me or what data about my company is being held by you.
Okay.
And then I want to further apply to either edit that data or to withdraw that data.
Okay. Good question. First of all, of course, as I said, there will be open data that is not related to any individual, okay, or any company. So we are not forcing private sector to give us all their data. So we're not jumping in and opening everything from day one, okay? Private sector will go to them and will say, we need this data because this is good for the city. So we will need to provide them, we need to tell them why we are using this data for the good of the city, whether it needs to be open or whether it needs to be shared, okay? So that's for the private sector. For the individuals, we are not exposing, because if you look at it, we have open data and we have shared data. So the information concerning individuals will be more toward, because it's privacy, it's confidentiality, it will be under the shared data. And the shared data is not just anyone comes and walks and says, I need access to that data, okay? There will be a process, there will be an agreements to be signed, there will be non-disclosure agreements to be signed, and there should be a reason why they need to access that data. A good reason for the good of people and the good of the city to access that data, okay? So that is the shared data. It's not it's not just anyone walking in and say, how can I apply to get, for example, Abdulla Madani's details? Okay? So that is it's not going to be there. Okay? And also in that, if someone wants, for example, to get the data about Abdullah, about my data, And this organization has to decide why he needs even my name. Maybe it's enough that he gets how many male, local, I don't know, with this age category. I will not disclose my age, okay? Right? So with this age category, later, okay, they can, we need this data. Okay, then he doesn't need to know who is Abdullah, where he lives, okay, where he works, all that. Maybe that is not required. So this all will be in the shared data aspect of it, not in the open data. Open data is data that does not have confidentiality issues, they don't have privacy issues, and they don't have security issues.
And I'm afraid we do have to take just our last question. This is the final question.
Thank you, Abdullah, for your great presentation. It's two small questions. First of all, the methodology of...
I can't hear you.
Yes, the methodology of getting the data from the private sectors. Are you going to open some sorts of interface so they can push their own data, or you are going to pull the data from the private sectors? And don't you think that that's gonna put the data centers of the private sectors under big pressures in terms of calling APIs or their own interface?
Okay. First of all, achieving the open data and the shared data and whatever we're talking has a major challenge. The first challenge is change management, how you handle change management. Technology is there, the data is there, it can be opened or shared from tomorrow even, okay? But you need to worry about concerns that people will have, organizations will have, private sectors might have, okay? I know that Abdullah is sitting there, he's saying, I'm not going to give you your data, Salat. And he's saying, if I'm going to give you your data, then I need do also to give you data, and so on, and so on. So the issue is, it's a journey that we have to go through. There is nothing called, we will go and we will say, tomorrow you have to give us this data. Yes, if this data is important for the city, we will request the private sector. If the private sector sees that this data, because they have lots of competition in the market, and they don't want this data to be shared with everyone, they don't want to keep it open, then we will make sure that it at least can be shared with certain, maybe not all, certain government entities for the good of the city, so that we will know how to manage the city better, okay? So it's nothing that we're going to enforce, or we're going to go and knock some private sector's door and say, you have to provide all your data today. It's not all your data. It's a selective data, and we have to sit on the table and discuss and convince the private sector, or even the government sector, or even the other sectors, okay? We need to go and sit with them and explain to them why this particular data we need, okay? And then after deciding why we need it, then we can decide through the framework, is this something can be opened or can only be shared, okay? And shared could be to the limited numbers between different limited community or group or whatever we're going to call it, okay? So it's not about policing, it's not about pushing or pulling, okay? It's about agreeing that this is something good for the city. This is something that people are willing, like this guy, this friend of mine called me this morning and said, I want to open the data. We need to see more of that people, okay? We want to change the culture, and this changing of the culture is the biggest challenge that we're going to face. We're going to face this challenge because many will say, I cannot trust, I cannot give this data, I'm not sure what will happen if data happens. I'll give you an example. We went to one entity and they brought their security guy, the person in charge of the security section. And we sat on the table and the guy said, You want to do open data? We don't have any data that can be opened. Simple answer. Okay? So how you treat this guy? How you make sure this guy comes on board? It's by talking to him, by convincing him, by looking, by taking him step by step. So patience is there. I give you an example earlier about Japan. They started in 2010. Still they are doing open data. Just now in 2014, they started asking the local governments to open their data. So it's a lot of work to be done. The law, the strategy, the law, the roadmap is to make this happen, is to set that base to make sure that things happen. But there is a lot of work behind it that needs to happen. It doesn't happen that today the law will come out, tomorrow everyone is out there and having their data out there. Hopefully, yes, but I don't think that's reality. So reality is that we have to go gradually. We need to do the change management well, and that's the biggest challenge we're going to face.